Rain lashed against the windows. Thunder roared. Elena shivered, pulling her shawl tighter. It was a night full of shadows. She had just arrived at the old house by the river. It stood alone, silhouetted against the stormy sky. A sense of unease crept over her. She was alone. The air inside the house was heavy and cold. Dust motes danced in the faint moonlight that pierced through the grimy windows.
Nerves, just nerves.
Elena fumbled for the light switch. The bulb flickered, then died, plunging her back into darkness. A sudden crash from upstairs made her jump. Her heart pounded in her chest. Taking a deep breath, Elena felt for her phone's flashlight. Its beam cut through the darkness, revealing a grand old staircase covered in a thick layer of dust. She climbed the steps slowly, each creak echoing in the silence. The storm raged on outside, but inside a different kind of storm was brewing, one that sent shivers down Elena's spine. The next morning dawned bright and clear, washing away the anxieties of the previous night. Elena, armed with cleaning supplies, began unpacking. In the attic, she found a wooden chest tucked under a dusty old sheet. Inside, nestled amongst yellowed lace and faded photographs, lay a porcelain doll. It was beautiful, with rosy cheeks and a flowing gown. But its eyes seemed to hold a deep, unsettling sadness.
Beware the weeping woman.
She shook her head, attributing it to her imagination. The old house was full of creaks and groans. It was easy to mistake those sounds for voices. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling of unease that the doll and the voice had evoked. Elena placed the doll on a shelf in the living room. As she turned away, she heard a soft, whimpering sound. Turning back, she saw that a single tear had rolled down the doll's porcelain cheek. A chill ran down Elena's spine. This house, she realized, held secrets. Dark secrets. The first night, Elena woke to the sound of soft crying. It seemed to be coming from downstairs, near the living room. Her heart pounded as she crept out of bed, every floorboard creaking a warning. As she reached the top of the stairs, the crying stopped abruptly. Silence hung in the air, heavy and oppressive. The next day, Elena found wet footprints leading from the riverbank to the house. They were small, like a child's, but no children lived nearby, and the footprints were too perfectly formed to be anything but human. Fear, cold and clammy, tightened its grip on her.
Beware the weeping woman.
Each night, the crying grew louder. Each morning, the wet footprints reappeared, leading closer and closer to the house. The air grew thick with a palpable sense of dread. Elena felt a constant chill, as if an unseen presence was watching her every move. She tried to rationalize it, to explain it away, but deep down she knew the truth. The weeping woman had come for her. One evening, as Elena sat by the window, she noticed something strange in the reflection of the glass. It was a woman, her long, dark hair cascading down her back. Her face was pale, her eyes filled with an unbearable sadness. She was wearing a white gown, tattered and torn, and she was weeping.
I spun around, but there was no one there. The room was empty. Had I imagined it? Was the isolation getting to me? I tried to convince myself that it was just a trick of the light, a figment of my imagination. But the image of the weeping woman, so vivid and real, refused to leave my mind.
That night, the crying reached a crescendo. It seemed to be coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. Elena, her nerves frayed, followed the sound to the bathroom. There, in the bathtub, lay the porcelain doll. Its once beautiful gown was now soaked through, and its eyes seemed to stare accusingly at Elena. The water in the tub was overflowing, spilling onto the floor, but the faucet was tightly shut. Driven by a desperate need for answers, Elena rushed out of the house and towards the river. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow on the water's surface. As she reached the riverbank, she saw her, the weeping woman, standing at the water's edge, her sobs echoing in the night.
She turned, and I gasped. Her face was contorted in an expression of pure anguish. Her eyes, filled with a bottomless sorrow, met mine. In that moment I understood. I understood the pain, the loss, the despair that drove this woman to haunt the river's edge.
Elena tried to speak, to offer comfort, but the words caught in her throat. The weeping woman took a step towards her, reaching out a hand as if seeking solace. But then, just as suddenly as she appeared, she vanished. The only evidence of her presence was the lingering scent of river water and a single white flower floating on the water's surface. Elena didn't stay in the house much longer. The encounter with the weeping woman had shaken her to her core. She moved out, leaving the house by the river to its secrets. But the memory of that night, the chilling cries and the sorrowful eyes of the weeping woman, continued to haunt her dreams. Years later, a new family moved into the old house by the river. They were young, full of hope and excitement, unaware of the darkness that clung to the house's walls. One afternoon, the family's young daughter came running down the stairs, clutching a familiar-looking porcelain doll in her arms.
Look what I found! She's crying real tears!
The girl's parents exchanged a worried look. They had heard the stories, the whispers of the weeping woman who haunted the river, but they dismissed them as old wives' tales. They would soon learn, however, that some legends are best left undisturbed. For the curse of the weeping woman, once unleashed, could never truly be laid to rest. And as the doll's tear slipped silently down its porcelain cheek, the river echoed with a mournful wail. The weeping woman was waiting.